Okay. Welcome to the August meeting of the Governance Committee of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. Our objective today is to review the various policies which govern the BFSA and to consider recommending approval of such policies by the full board. We will also receive the annual procurement report and the prompt payment report, and will consider a recommendation that these two items also be approved by the full board. Our final item is to review the format of the annual board self-evaluation and approve the submission of this item to each director to complete. Okay, as we start the meeting, I'll call the roll. Chair Olson is excused. Vice Chair Jerzak.
President.
Director Sanfilippo.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. The first item of business is to approve the minutes of the committee meeting held on December 17th, 2020. The draft minutes are located under tab 1 in your board books. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Any corrections? Hearing none, we can move on. We'll now advance the agenda to review the BFSA's various policies, procedures, and reports, and we'll consider recommending approval of these items to the full board. The relevant documents are located again under tab 1 in your board book. Jeanette and Claire, will you review the items for us, please?
Yes, thank you. So reviewing these policies and procedures annually, some of them are required by state law. Others we include for good governance by the BFSA. So I want to thank both of your work and efforts on all of these policies and procedures, as there is quite a lot of them. So we've done a really great job. My staff have done a great job in the past few years scrubbing through these policies and getting them as solid as possible. So where we're at now when we go through our review process is we review any changes in state law that would affect our policies and procedures and make those changes accordingly. So there's just a few for me to go through with you today. There's no changes to the bylaws. There's minor changes to the Code of Ethics. The first change is on page 4, and it's more of an administrative change. The salary threshold used to define a key employee is established by the state, and that number is reflected in our Code of Ethics now. The next change is on it's on the appendix, page A5. And what this change is, again, it was at the state level. So to define a financial interest, the state increased the threshold from a prior $1,000 to $5,000. So in terms of disclosable financial interest, it's now $5,000, and our policy reflects that. The remaining edits are for grammar and for consistency. And just as a reminder, an annual certification is required from all governor appointees and employees of BFSA, noting that you're complying with the Code of Ethics. There are no changes to the mission statement, the investment guidelines, the property disposal guidelines, all the other policies listed on the agenda. With the exception of the conflicts of interest policy, and those changes are, I'm just going to call them consistency related. It's to be more inclusive. So where we used to say he throughout the policy, now it says he, she, or they. But the tenet of the policy itself remains unchanged from last year. The conflict of interest policy is required to be signed once when a director is appointed or a new employee is hired. So that is not something that we're asking the directors to sign again this year if they've already signed one. I have no other comments on the policies or procedures. I'll have Claire just review the 2 reports that are included for you.
We'll just start off with the prompt payment report. New York State law, section 2880, requires that annually we prepare a report on the scope and implementation of our prompt payment policy. And we report on findings. Really, the findings are just reporting on contracts that we entered into in excess of $5,000 during the fiscal year. The first is Lumsden and McCormick, which is our annual audit services. And then the other is PFM, which is our financial advisor. Both of those were renewed this year. And it should be noted that all of our payments that were made during the year were made in compliance with our prompt payment policy. And as a result, we did not have any interest payments. The other report that we're required to issue is in line with New York State Public Authorities Law, Section 2879, and it is the Procurement Contracts Report. Annually, we must prepare this. And basically what this report indicates are contracts, procurement contracts that we paid during the year in excess of $5,000 on a cash basis. There were 5 vendors that we paid: the Bank of New York, which is our annual trustee, or our trustee, who manages our outstanding long-term debt. Market Arcade Group, which is our lease agreement. We are currently on a month-to-month with them. Lumsden and McCormick again, our annual auditing services. McGavran and McGavran Grimm, legal services, and PFM, public financial management. And we are currently in compliance with all contract status with all 5 of those. Are there any questions?
I have some questions regarding the investment. How much money does the BFSA have invested right now?
Well, we have money with KeyBank in our money market account. And then there are funds held that are moved every single month under agreements. And then those are invested as well based on the sales tax that we carve out, goes to our trustee. They invest it for a period of time and then release it to make payments for debt.
Okay, but generally speaking, how much do we have in outstanding investments right now, and what investment instruments are we in? Commercial bank, CDs. We have any repos out there? Or?
I don't think there are any repos out there right now. Most of it's very low interest returning, except for what's been approved FDA agreements where it's guaranteed returns, which are very good. Right now, there really are not a whole lot of good investment options.
Oh no, there isn't.
Yeah.
Like I said, how much do we have?
You know what? I would probably just have to. I just want to be clear on that, and I'm just grab the
And
financials.
of course, then my next question is, if we're in collateralized commercial bank CDs, how often do we price the value of those securities that are pledged against our investments? That's
Go ahead. Yep.
Right now, we keep all of our excess cash in a money market account with KeyBank. We had them do an evaluation for us, and the compensating balance that we maintain in there allows them to not charge us any fees. So we ran some numbers based on, okay, this is how much interest we could earn, this is what the fees would be if we ended up rolling it into CDs, and it didn't make financial sense to move in that direction. So
okay. So
we're in a money market that earns.
You are unmuted.
Okay, so the money market deposits that we have with who again? KeyBank?
KeyBank.
Okay. They are or they aren't collateralized?
They are collateralized. We have collateral agreements.
So the collateral that's pledged, how often do they report to you as the securities? Because what they do is they substitute all the time
Yeah, they do.
pledged securities against the bank account.
Right.
So I guess, once they, first of all, who signs off on that? Because someone has to sign off on when they substitute securities, or they at least should. I mean, how they notify you if they're substituting collateral?
There's not a notification necessarily that's made, so as far as substituting any of that.
Okay, because when they do substitute, then it's probably incumbent upon us to determine the value of those securities and those substitutions, because this market's changed by the minute. And then, I don't know if we should have the authority to say, well, wait a minute, we don't accept this Fannie Mae or Ginnie Mae or,
That's correct.
you know, India government import debentures or whatever they want to pledge. So I'm just, from a standpoint, from my experience, we should really monitor when they do exchange or substitute securities from one to another, that we got to know the value of that. And even still, even though it's all compensating balance, and I get that part, there should be a haircut on the securities just to offset perhaps the fluctuating market of the value of those securities. So I'm just saying it as an advisory,
Okay.
that, you know, we just can't allow banks to intermittently exchange and substitute collateral at will without us notifying and then us telling us the value that's supporting the balances. That's just my observation. You know, it isn't a criticism in any way. I'm just saying we got to hold banks accountable for whatever they're doing, collateralizing or what securities they're pledging against our deposits. That's all.
I appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Don't let those banks get away with it.
Are there any other questions or discussion points? If not, yes, go ahead.
Well,
Jeanette.
what is the word, in regard to all of them, and I think that's how we're proceeding, not individually. I've noticed that some of the documents, like the mission statement, says reaffirmed with today's date, and some of the documents, like the Code of Ethics, simply says revised today's date. And reaffirmed, and I like that word, because the governance committee is being advised that there have been changes, and we are reaffirming the policy statement. That's a good word, as opposed to just revised.
Okay.
So,
But I think reaffirm means that there were no changes. Revise means we changed something in the document. I think that's the distinction.
that's the distinction.
Between the two.
Okay, all right.
At least that's my understanding. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It would make that's correct.
So, the action we're taking is we are cognizant of, we approve, or what exactly?
Well, we as board members have reviewed, looked at the changes, and are now voting to accept those changes so that we have updated our policies going forward for the next year.
Our self-governance
Right.
Policies, all right.
Okay?
Do we have, thank you.
Yeah.
Where do we state, how do we state for the world that we are advisory and not control status right now? How have we done that? It's not in this bundle.
No, there's no policy or guidance under that. I mean, there was a resolution back in 2012 that formally documented that.
Right. No, I know it doesn't belong here.
Okay.
No, I understand. And that was an action taken by the board.
Mm-hmm.
And soon enough, it's going to be ultra necessary as sort of as the world unknits after the end of the rescue plan, because it's knitted together in a kind of high artifice right now, and it's going to unknit. And so this is a question for me for my work here. The world knows advisory status, and it means these 5 things and not these 5 things. And that's in the form of a resolution. Can you just send that around again,
Sure.
please? I mean, the Buffalo News, you know, various various entities are looking at us, looking over our shoulder, and as I said, as things unknit again, I would just like to see how we can expect the world to see us Just,
Okay.
thank you, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, I would like a motion to approve all of the policies and reports in one vote.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second,
Okay, those policies are bylaws, code of ethics, mission statement, investment guidelines, property disposal guidelines, use of discretionary funds policy, whistleblower policy, lobbying policy, procurement guidelines, the annual procurement report, prompt payment policy, the annual prompt payment policy report, and the conflict of interest policy. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. Okay. Our next item of business is to review the annual board self-evaluation and recommend its submission to each director for completion. A copy of the policy guidance from the authority's budget office has been included in tab 1. The format is consistent with what we've done in the past. May I have a motion to approve the distribution of the annual Board of Directors evaluation? It's the one with all the little boxes on it, if you haven't seen it. And ask that each director complete the evaluation.
So
So,
moved.
thank you. Second?
second,
Okay. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay, it is approved. Is there any other business before the subcommittee? If not, this concludes the meeting of the Governance Committee of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority, and I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
As
So
moved,
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.